And so this fellow made a historic misjudgment, which I don't think he will be able now to extricate himself from, if for no other reason that most Syrians now loathe him, even though a year ago they deeply respected him.
ويلعن روحك يا حافظ على الخلف المنزية سوريا بدها سوريا بدها ويلعن قناة الدنيا والقناة السورية سوريا بدها سوريا بدها ويلعن قناة الدنيا والقناة السورية سوريا بدها سوريا بدها ولما حقنا ردنا سمونا إرهابية سوريا بدها سوريا بدها ولما حقنا ردنا سمونا سلامية سوريا بدها سوريا بدها.
That repression, the killing by the Syrian government of its own people, that is not an answer to conflict in the 21st century. That's why journalism is so important, why reporters must be there, and why citizen journalists on the ground, whether with their cell phone, with a little video camera, with a little photograph, why it's so important to get word out, because that links people all over.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. As we turn now to Syria, the government crackdown on protesters in Syria has reached a new level of violence just as prayers ended Monday, the first day of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. At least 6 people were killed earlier today, pushing the toll to at least 150 over the last 2 days. An attack on the central city of Hama began on Sunday when more than 100 people were killed by government forces, continued into Monday with another 24 dead across the country. Syria has banned most foreign journalists, making it hard to verify exactly what's happening there. I have just gotten someone on the phone within Syria, and it's very difficult to do this. So we want to go right to Razan Zaitouna, who is the lawyer, human rights activist in Damascus, who's been reporting on the recent protests.
The Syrian government knows what it's doing when it says no to reporters, because it knows that the brutality that will be reflected in those pictures, those images that get out, is what's going to undermine them. It undermines injustice. It undermines lack of democracy. It exposes the truth. The reason the Syrian government has banned the journalists is because it knows no army is more powerful than a single camera showing the injustice of that image. Armed men against defenseless people.
يا وطننا ويا غالب يا دار الدوع عليا يا
وطننا ويا غالب
هبت من درعا ثورة بتنادي بالحرية
يا وطننا ويا غالب
طالع خيل وجاسم والقورة الحورانية
يا وطننا ويا غالب
والشام يا بخت الشام والمراجل الخلدية
يا وطننا ويا غالب
وسباع يا باب سباع والمراجل الخلدية
يا وطننا ويا غالب
رستم تلبيسي وبياضة مقابر للبعثية
يا وطننا ويا غالب
طرطوس منبع ناموس ويا محلاها اللدئية
يا وطننا ويا غالب
يا ربي حما حامية أهل الفدا نشمية
يا وطننا ويا غالب
والشهبة كلها تنام وتصحى رجال الحامية
يا وطننا ويا غالب.
So if I were a Syrian activist, there are a few different mistakes that I could make. The first is thinking that I need to succeed right away or the movement is over. So I see a lot of activists sometimes thinking that because we've been at this for a couple of months and we feel like we're in a kind of a stalemate situation, we need to escalate our tactics to violence in order to win. And I don't know that that's necessarily going to help the movement to do that. In fact, with some research I've done with Kurt Schock, we find that having an armed wing doesn't actually help movements and can actually reduce the level of participation that the movements have already built up. So that can be a dangerous mistake. So impatience and thinking that arms is going to accelerate the process, those are two major mistakes. Another mistake is feeding into the disunity that might already exist in a society, or sort of falling into the trap of allowing the regime to keep the civilian population separated from itself.
The repression and the heroism in Syria, the remarkable bravery of people. There are those who have died, thousands of people, but how people are surviving now and how difficult, how impossible it seems. In the end, people working together in movements always prevail.
At this moment, you know, the expression in English, you strike while the iron is hot. There's an opportunity came out of thin air. There's now this opportunity to free the Arab Muslim world from this dead weight that they've had to bear for nearly a century now. And opportunities in politics come and go. You miss them, and you may have to wait a very long time before it happens again.
بسم الله على الجنة جنة 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 والله يا وطننا جنة 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 والله يا وطننا يا وطن يا حبيب يا ابو تراب الطيب حد غازي يا طيب يا ابو تراب الطيب حتى نار الجنة حتى نار الجنة ابو عبد الله سرحان رمز كل الشجعان ابو عبد الله سرحان رمز كل الشجعان تتهنى بالجنان تتهنى بالجنان يا شيخ تتهنى جنة 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 والله يا وطننا 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 يا وطن يا حبيب يا ابو تراب الطيب يا وطن يا حبيب يا ابو تراب الطيب.
As I say, sitting nice and peacefully here, I don't presume to tell people what they should do when they're faced with murderous military forces, but the courage of the resistance has been very impressive and inspiring, and difficult as it may be, I think pursuit of a nonviolent approach will be the best method of bringing in proper international support and indeed undermining the forces of violence themselves.
So if I were Bashar al-Assad, I would adopt a divide and rule strategy for the campaign. I would say, let me do two things here. The first thing I'm going to do is make them use violence against my security forces so that the security forces don't hesitate to kill. So I'm going to try to provoke them into taking up arms against me. The second thing that I'm going to do is try to sow divisions within the different groups in my society that I already know have tensions. So I'm going to try to make it impossible for the Alawites, the Christians, the Sunni Muslims, and the other people in this country to come together in unity. So I'm going to try to stoke tensions between them and make sure that they're divided. And I'm going to try to terrorize people. And the reason I'm going to try to terrorize them is because I know that I cannot repress them. I can't do it forever. So I'm going to try to use terror to just scare them so that they don't come out of their houses and join this revolution. So even Adolf Hitler knew, as we now know from his writings, that no dictator can rule by force alone, that they have to have a psychological power over the people, and they do that by scaring the living daylights out of them. So I'm going to do some really nasty things, and I'm going to do it really publicly. And I'm going to make sure that people know that I'm willing to do these horrible things to people to stay in power so that they won't continue to rise up against me. So that's essentially my strategy. And so far it's not working, but maybe it will the more I apply pressure.